Welcome to the latest episode of Before Floor, your Miami Heat pregame show here on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, do all those good things. We want the algorithms to work in our favor. I am Greg Sylvander. We have a unusual cast of characters because you're not going to see Ethan J. Skolnick, and we're hoping Ricky J. Mark jumps on any moment now. But before we go around the panel here, which includes Jonathan Ramlakan, you could follow him at 3-Piece Combo. Brady Hawk, who's live on the scene at the game at the AAA. I'm still calling it that. I don't care. FTX Arena, sorry. We have Duncan Robinson himself is here. No, that's Sean Rochester, the coach. Sean Rochester, the coach himself. And then Alejandro is obviously on the ones and twos. So before we get into that, let's address, acknowledge, and show appreciation and gratitude to our sponsors. First is Biscayne Bay Brewing. They're the official beer of the Miami Marlins. The Miami Marlins Lager is one of the most popular ones. The Pale Ale is really good. The Tropical Bay IPA, is one of the crowd favorites for sure. Ask for these by name. There's the Miami Pale Ale I alluded to earlier. These are spreading like around South Florida. You can find them at most of your local spots, but if not, ask for them by name. They're absolutely bringing the heat. That's Biscayne Bay Brewing. They are the official sponsor of this pregame show, as well as we have one more sponsor to tell you guys about, and that's Mark Brown PA. So if you're concerned about estate tax, estate planning, wills, trusts, anything related to those types of legal matters, you want to make sure that all your ducks are in a row, you want to reach out to the law firm of Mark Brown PA. They're here to help. They're committed to various different practices of this area of law, whether it be real estate litigation, debt defense, which I think is really important these days. So reach out to him as a planning attorney. You'll reap the benefits of his decades of work. He has plenty of experience. Reach out to him for a free case evaluation at 954-566-5678. Again, that's 954-566-5678. And tell him that 5 Reasons Sports sent you, that Before Floor sent you. We would love, he's a friend of the program, big Heat fan, so definitely mention us if you reach out. That's Mark Brown, PA. All right, gentlemen. Jimmy Butler is back. So that's one reason why I am hyped for today. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays, all that good stuff. We are a day behind that. Everybody got a day to be with their families and catch their breath, but now it's back to the action. So it's the Miami Heat and the Orlando Magic, and these two teams met fairly recently. Jonathan, you were on site at Orlando. But before we dive into like anything related to this game, Brady, you got to tell us who's in and who's out, because this looks like a far different matchup. Right?
Yeah, it looks different even from the last time we talked about who was in, who was out, because as soon as they get somebody back, as you mentioned, Jimmy Butler was warming up with the intention to play. Kyle Lowry yesterday entered the protocol, so they get a big dog back and they lose another big dog. So it's going to be interesting. It feels like Gabe Vincent now has to step up into more of the creator mode, and he's going to be the starting point guard, stay in the starting lineup. And I would expect them to probably stick with everything else similarly, except obviously no Dwayne Dedmon in this game because of his injury. I probably would think Omer would step into the starting lineup, probably keep Strus at the 4 because it seems like they're not going to change everything, and then keep Duncan and Jimmy in there as well.
Yeah, no, I lean in your direction, and I think this is you feel like Jimmy's on the cusp of coming back, and then bam, Kyle's out. At least to me, there's some. I take solace in the fact that like Jimmy can still control and direct traffic in ways that maybe Kyle can't do to the same degree, but at least there's some alpha-like presence out there. Jonathan, I'll go to you here. Gabe Vincent, he started the last 7 games. He scored in double figures, 5 of those 7. I'm checking my notes here. 2 20-point performances. We know how Gabe has played. Kyle's going to be out now. So before we address the good things that Jimmy's going to bring back, tell us how Gabe fills that void while Kyle is out, and just how that whole dynamic's going to play out, because we don't know when Kyle will be back.
Yeah, and the thing about Gabe, in the last Orlando game, he actually had a career high. He actually had 2 consecutive career highs, one against Philadelphia and the other against Orlando. So he had that career high in Orlando, and he had that magical third-quarter performance. And to your point about his scoring, he's been scoring the ball well too, but he's been facilitating at a pretty decent clip as well, right? I think he's about the 4 assist mark, pretty close to that over the last that stretch he's been starting as well. So he's going to bring that too. And you know what he's going to bring on defense. I mean, whoever he's guarding is just going to have a nightmare matchup. Gabe Vincent, lateral quickness. He's able to stay in front of his guys, that full court press. He has that dog, that little extra edge on him that just makes you bothered as an offensive player. So that's what he's going to bring to the game. I think he's going to have that shooting with him. You're going to see the creation come mainly from three guys, right? It's going to be Jimmy Butler, Tyler Herro, and I think that third guy is going to be Gabe Vincent. I think all three of those guys need to have 5+ assists tonight for us to get that win.
So Jimmy's back. Co-sign everything you said, Jonathan. Gabe is huge in this stretch. And so I'm not going to throw Coach Sean. I am not. I don't know who all calls you Coach Sean. I don't know where I came up with that. I'm trying to come up with a coach nickname for you on this pregame show. I'm not throwing you the softball of what does Jimmy Butler's return mean for the Miami Heat. I want to go in a different direction because Max Strus has been a big part of how Miami's been able to get through this stretch without Jimmy, right? He's averaging 25 over his last 4 games. How does Jimmy Butler's return directly impact a guy like Max Strus, Caleb Martin, who we're going to see back today? Thankfully, we're getting bodies back. How does it impact those guys who've had to kind of play a different role and now have to adjust with Jimmy back in the fold?
Yeah, I mean, I think it affects both sides because the spacing that Max and Gabe and Duncan are giving you, along with Tyler, it spreads out the defense, allows guys like Jimmy and Caleb to get downhill because they can attack those gaps. On the other side of it, then, when they get downhill, it's not always going to be a dunk or a layup. You can spray out to those guys and driving kicks. So I think they work well together. I think I agree with your point about Strus probably staying in the starting lineup because of that spacing that he provides. And, we've talked about this before. When Jimmy misses time, he usually comes back with a bang. So he's been out for a while, and I would expect him to be ready to go today and give us a good game.
Ricky, tell us why the Heat should be worried about this Orlando Magic team. Oh, look, the universe put him on mute on purpose. Look at that. Sometimes
That's
things
hilarious.
are just meant to be.
Or not. Well, here's the thing. Orlando is always going to be Orlando because this weird, funky interstate rivalry between the Heat and the Magic has never really cared much about whether or not the Heat have a dominant juggernaut or the Magic are a perennial seller lottery team. I mean, the Magic are going to be the Magic. Their guards are always going to be annoying. Whatever bigs they have left might find a way to be annoying. And at this point, Miami needs to go in and win. There's no such thing as a cakewalk when it comes to Orlando for some reason, because you might mess around and have one of these guards go for 40. This is where the random scrub Heat killer was born, seemingly. So, I mean, worried? Yeah, I would say more concerned. Not so much worried, concerned. But at the end of the day, look, Miami should win this. They should. I think that's fair to say all around.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. I'm interested also to see with Jimmy back how it impacts Tyler. Tyler, I saw a stat before the game that he's had 25 points off the bench in back-to-back games. I guess, Brady, I'll ask you this because you're there in the arena. How happy do you think Tyler is to have Jimmy back in terms of just reinforcements on the offensive end? He doesn't have to have so much attention on him. And just any other observations. I know you're posted there up at the arena, so I don't want to keep you too long. So if you have to jet, that's okay. But just kind of your overall impression of Tyler with Jimmy back.
Yeah, I think recently without Jimmy, Tyler's been driving a lot more, and I don't think that's just him reading defenses, which it is, but it's a lot because they don't have that right now. They don't have Bam that's able to attack the basket. They don't have Jimmy that's able to attack the basket, so he's able to do it. Kyle did it late in the fourth, and it was allowing Tyler to kind of play more on the outside with Max. Now it's another thing where he doesn't have to do it as much. Now he can play his entire game, kind of feed into whatever he elects to do and just completely read things throughout a game. I think lineup-wise, something to bring up that's interesting is without so many bodies, we saw a weird pairing. We constantly talk about the Duncan-Tyler pairing, but there was a lot of Tyler, Duncan, and Max, which is just a very interesting pairing because it's obviously a bit of a defensive liability. But offensively, they can do a lot of things, and it was really interesting because they would put like Max and Duncan on the weak side box and fly them out to the wing, and Tyler would just have an open layup. He did it like 2 straight times there late in the second half. So I just feel like they could do some interesting things there. I'm interested to see that because right now, as I said before, they're just down so many bodies that they have to run those funky lineups. And by the way, another game I didn't mention earlier is Caleb Martin returning, which is going to be big because I feel like that's what we have to talk about. The last time he was out here, last time he was playing was in this arena, and he had his season high, or was it a career high? It probably was, where he had the big game. They could use him tonight. Maybe they slot him into the starting 4. I also wouldn't be surprised about that.
Yeah, so you beat me to my next question. Jonathan, who the hell's starting? Is it Yurtseven? Like, should we just expect it at the 5?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best way to go, right? I mean, next to Jimmy Butler, you want somebody who just can do a little bit of enough. I'm not so comfortable in KZ yet, right? But Yurt over the last couple of games has just been an absolute monster on the boards, right? So if he can go out there, let Jimmy not be so worried about doing everything, right? He's going to have to score. He's going to have to facilitate. If you can have somebody else just get the rebounds, do a little bit of the work inside, then you can get enough from Yurt. I think he's been continuing to grow over this stretch. I've liked the small developments he's made game to game. I mean, last game, after getting blocked from the dunk, which he's been getting blocked almost every game, he at least went back up and he got the shot this time, right?
Yeah.
So he was able to do something even reactionary from getting blocked. He has that short little hook starting to develop a little bit more. He's not short or long every single time. It's starting to fall in. I think Yurt's there. I think you have a steady, calming presence in Jimmy Butler who can still lead Yurt. Lowry out. He was that guy before. I think Yurt slots in, and I think he'll still have another double-digit rebounding game.
That would be another one off the bench. That would mean that he would tie Hassan Whiteside with 4 consecutive. Look at Hassan getting a shout out for me on this program. That's how we're deviating from the norm. Something just hit me while you were talking, Jonathan. Like, who the hell is going to start this game? Like, it just, like, I tried to calibrate as you were talking and catalog the guys and say, okay, he's out. Who's going to, I'm at a loss. Who is starting tonight? I'm any of you guys that want to jump in and take a shot at who the 5 are that are going to start. I'd love to hear it. Oh, come on. One of y'all needs to just butt in. Let's go.
I'll just say, I said it before.
Gabe, Duncan, Strus. Go ahead.
As I talked about it before, and I brought up Max Strus starting at the 4. It feels like Caleb starting in there makes a lot more sense when you think about it, just because I feel like they were forcing Strus in there. I feel like Caleb at the 4, they go small. Jimmy, Duncan, Gabe, and Omer. That would probably be my guess.
Got it. Jimmy, Duncan, Gabe, Omer, and Caleb. Okay. Does anybody disagree with that lineup?
I would say Omer with Max, Duncan, Jimmy, and Gabe. I just think that the spacing with Caleb and Jimmy would seem to be a problem, but who knows? I mean, obviously Spoelstra is he's gonna cook up something in the lab and throw it out there today.
And Jonathan, I didn't hear what you said because Brady was live there. There's background noise. What 5 did you throw out? Was it the same one that Sean just did?
Yeah, it was the same one that Coach did. So the same starting. You put the starting 3. You have them stretching out, like he was saying. That spacing. If you have Jimmy with Caleb and Omer, that's a pretty clogged paint. If you have Max Strus, and then you can bring Caleb Martin, who imitates some of what Jimmy does off the bench, then you can. I think that's a little more of a seamless fit, in my opinion, at least.
I'm with you, Ricky. Any objections? Anything to add as it relates to this matchup?
No, y'all pretty much covered it. At this point, I just hope that the Heat do what they're supposed to do. The matchups are what they are, but that's only half or 75% of the battle. The remaining 25% is whether or not this Heat team wins or loses today. So hopefully they are locked in, or stupidly locked in, as Jimmy's known for having said, and they do this thing.
Yeah, no, like me, who said don't overreact to the Detroit loss at Detroit. That was operating under the assumption PJ Tucker was available. Now that he's not available, they cannot afford to drop these games against an inferior team. So I have changed my stance there. They need these. But here's the good news. The Heat have won both the meetings with the Magic this season. The last time they swept the season series was 2013-14. So that was bronze last year, right? Gosh.
Yeah.
And this is I think this may be the last meeting until the final day of the season between these two teams. So you're not going to see Orlando again. So let's go around, get predictions. The Heat RA, I'm looking at this live, 11.5-point favorite. So everybody likes the Heat at home. So I'm not just asking, do the Heat get the victory? We'll go around the room and I'll start with Brady. Do they cover the 11.5 points? So do they win by 12 or more at home, Brady?
I think they do. I think this one is finally a game where they get a definitive win, where you can play a bad team and they get it over early. I feel like we say this a lot because it's an easy thing to say, but this really feels like a Tyler game to me. I think this is one of like a 30-plus point game from Tyler. It just feels like it's setting up. We talked about it earlier with Jimmy in the starting lineup. It's constantly him having to save that starting lineup because they're constantly down in many of those situations, and Tyler's come in and save them. Tonight, I don't think that'll be, or today, I should say, I don't think that'll happen. And I think this is a game where it's just setting up for Tyler.
Jonathan is on mute.
Yep, there we go. I do think we win, but I don't think they cover. I think we're down too many bigs at this point, right? And I'm really worried if Omer picks up a couple of cheap fouls and you got to throw in KZ as the 5, or God forbid you have UD in extended minutes, right? You love him in spurt minutes, but you don't want him being out there guarding Wendell Carter Jr. for 20 minutes. So I think, there is a slight possibility where we get out rebounded. Without Kyle, we might be turning over the ball a little bit more than we should. Those things could go wrong, but I do see us picking up the win for sure. I just don't think we cover the spread.
Ricky.
Look, I want to say that Miami's going to win today, and normally I would, but if I'm not mistaken, Ethan J. Skolnick is at the arena.
He is, but it's an off day for him. He's enjoying the game with his daughter, who is a good luck charm and offsets any bad luck he would bring to any stadium. Let's just get that out of the way. But go ahead, Ricky, if you want to run with that narrative now against the boss man.
Look, that's the thing. I mean, normally I rock with the CEO. She usually counterbalances whatever jinx he brings to the arena, but I'm worried. I really am. It's just the universe is talking. I'm not even sure, man. I'll say the Heat win if Sasha is able to successfully dilute whatever Ethan pumps into the atmosphere over there.
Fair. Sean, what you got?
Yeah, I just think, we rely so much on the 3 right now because of missing guys. I don't know how Jimmy's going to affect that, coming back and relying more on him. But I think he's going to impact the defense too. I think we win. I think the covering part of that is iffy. I would lean more towards the over, like 204, I think is the over. And I saw earlier Strus is at like 13.5 over under points. I would take that thing. I think that he's still going to get shots up. I mean, we know he'll do that. So I don't know. I don't have Prize Picks in PA, so you guys got to check that out if that's on there. But that would be something I would look at with Strus.
Yeah, no, I was trying to actually quickly check the board here for Max Strus. They don't have Max Strus, but Gabe Vincent's at 12.5 points on Prize Picks. I would go over. I like Gabe more than 12.5 points today. The covering part is interesting. I think you bring up a good thing. An interesting thing to watch in this game is, do they look clunky at the beginning because of the live and die by the 3 mentality that now gets a little bit of a release valve in Jimmy, but sometimes that can get clunky in where guys are positioned on the floor. And if Jimmy's pounding it, that kind of stuff, and trying to find his rhythm. So I think that's something interesting to watch. Ultimately, you guys know where I'm going with this. Think the Heat get the win. I am interested to watch this stretch because without Kyle as the engine of the offense, who was kind of lifting all these role players up in really big ways, can they still continue to play at that level? Because the Heat need every one of those guys to continue to play well. So there's a lot to watch here. And my bold prediction is this is the game where Jimmy Butler and Tyler Herro as a duo claim their all-star spots. From this game forward, you're going to see them play the type of basketball that gets both of them into the NBA All-Star game in Cleveland come February. Thank you for tuning into our show. Again, shout out to the sponsors, Biscayne Bay Brewing Company. Also, Mark Brown, PA. Reach out to him for your free case evaluation. Mention 5 reasons. Anybody else got any parting shots?
Let's go Heat.
Let's go.
Pace and Spaces at halftime. Pace and Spaces at halftime.
If you're on Twitter, come check out Pace and Spaces. It's super dope. Good conversation right at halftime. So be there, be square, or however that works. Be spaces. All right, y'all. Peace.
Wait, what?
Any news?
We're still live?
Every day there's news. Jimmy and PJ Jimmy is warming up with the intention to play, and PJ is not going to play tonight. And you guys have had to adjust so much over the last few weeks, just the different guys in and out, and now with Kyle out for who knows how long. I mean, what's that challenge like of now adjusting again without a guy, you've been running a lot of offense through?
Yeah, I mean, this is the reality of this association right now. And with us, we've had to deal with it probably a little bit more extensively than the last few weeks, but it's happening everywhere. So we just have to focus on this afternoon, one game. I think you can get a little bit overwhelmed if you're just trying to figure everything out and trying to map out the next 2 months. We don't have to do that. All we have to do is focus on today. And, guys have gained some confidence, feeling good about, how we're playing. And also if, we have one guy going out, it's good that we have one guy coming back in.
Hey, Coach, speaking of guys that have gained confidence, your 4 straight games with double-figure rebounds. How impressed are you with his consistency the past few games?
With Omer?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. He's really been steady, with his work, and he has great mentorship, from Malik, working with him every single day since Summer League, but also UD. The two of them really been working on the finer points of what he needs, to take the next step to impact winning for us. And that's, using his size, using his physicality, being big and strong in traffic, whether that's going up for rebounds or challenging shots, and also finishing at the rim, in a big way. But they work on it, relentlessly. If you just watched one of those sessions with just the three of them on a side court, it looks like a cage match, a cage fight. The level of the physicality that's going on, and the screaming and yelling and all that. But Omer wants it. He wants the coaching. He wants to be pushed, literally and figuratively, and he's showing some really important strides right now.
Coach, as far as the COVID and the protocols, how disruptive is this, like on a day-to-day, trying to plan for the next game, not knowing who the players are, sometimes not even knowing if you're going to have a game that night? I mean, nerve-wracking. Do you ever feel like just screaming out?
No. Look, this is the reality of, the world, the last year and a half plus, and in this association. We've been dealing with this, last year and this year. And you just have to adapt, stay the course as much as possible, focus on your reality, focus on solutions, and not get overwhelmed in things that you can't control. And I think, it's also important for everybody just to have a little bit of grace with each other. These are tough things. Whenever you get a piece of information, everybody's instinct is to blame somebody. It's a crazy virus. It really is. It just brings out the worst in people. It can happen. The league they have to make, really tough decisions right now. I don't envy, what they're having to do, but organizations are having to make, tough decisions daily. Same thing with the Players Association, staffs, and just have to stay the course. The business is still moving forward. It's thriving. Everyday life is still moving forward, but you have to have the appropriate level of precautions and awareness as well.
Kind of two things, both related to center. Excuse me. One, I know it was diagnosed as a sprain night of, but when you got the word that Dwayne was 1 to 2 weeks at most, there had to be a sigh of relief.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it. When you see one of your players like that on the floor, it's not hard for your mind to drift. And I know he probably didn't sleep well that night. And when we all got the news the next day, I was like, okay, we can all enjoy our Christmas.
And obviously without him, without Bam, you said no on PJ tonight. He wasn't a 5, but can play whatever you need him to play down there. Udonis, big minutes tonight. Is there a limit to how much you would consider throwing him out? Like, how do you?
I don't put any kind of limitations on UD ever, as a competitor. It'll be based on need. And clearly his minutes the other night gave us a really a great emotional boost, but also productivity. It was all about making winning plays and contributing, to the win that we've all seen over the years. He just does all those X factor things. And I think that also elevates the learning, for our young players too, because he's with them every single day, working with them. But then when you also see it in action, okay, this is what the definition of a winning play is, and the majority of his plays a lot of times don't even end up in a box score. And I think those kind of lessons are invaluable for our young guys to see.
Hey, Spo, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I know you said after the win against Detroit that we all be able to enjoy Christmas. Just wanted to check in with you. I'm sure you got the obligatory socks or whatever dads get, but as a young father, maybe what was the best gift you got, and maybe what brought the biggest smile to your two kids that you gave them?
I should reel off like a few of the gifts, but as a dad, you're not even thinking about the gifts that you get. It was the 2 hours of unwrapping gifts. For our two boys, and seeing the joy on their faces, but also like acknowledging how many gifts they were getting from all the relatives and everything. It's like, all right, we got to control this a little bit. There's a lot of cleanup going on at our household after lunch yesterday, but a beautiful day. 2 days. So you don't get those kind of breaks very often in this league. Having 2 days off like that to be able to spend with your family, I treasure that.
All right, Coach.
Okay,
thank you.
All right, questions? Josh?
He's going through his warm up now, so he's still listed as questionable, but or probable. So we're gonna see where he is as he finishes his warm up now.
So I guess you don't have your starting lineup yet.
Starting lineup not out yet.
How difficult has this been? Obviously, I mean, not just for your team, but every team, not knowing when you get up, who's going to be available, who is it, not just for your team, but for the other teams.
Well, we've talked about it with our coaches. You say expect the unexpected. So we just got to make sure that we're just prepared for whatever could come. And guys know that when their number's called, that they're ready to go. And we've talked about that with our guys over time, and just being ready to go, understanding what we're doing, keeping it as simple as possible, offensively and defensively, and just being ready to go when your number is called.
Last few games, you guys have been limiting the turnovers, which I know was an issue earlier. Do you like the progress you're making as far as taking care of it?
I really do. We talked about that in the film session this morning. Our guys, kind of chimed in. We communicated why are we keeping the turnovers low? And we talked about just making the simple play. If reading the defense, understanding if the defender's in front, it's just a simple pass and it's a quick play. Whether you have it, if you're open, shoot it, drive it, or move it. And that's what we're going to continue to harp on with our guys, of understanding that.
Transition defense has also been something you guys have improved at lately. What has gone into that? Are you guys just being more careful, more disciplined?
Well, I think we constantly talk about just sprinting back, protecting the rim first, declaring the ball, and then creating a wall in front of the ball. But a big portion of that is us being able to take care of the basketball, knowing where shots are coming from, guys getting out of the corner, sprinting back fast, and just, making a conscious effort to sprint back and protect that rim.
Hey, George.
We'll go to Tim Reynolds, Associated Press.
Hey, Jamal. Good to see you.
Hey, Tim.
Jamal, even though you guys aren't getting, the results that you always want, and you've had guys in, guys out, injuries, all of it, like everybody else, it just seems like from watching you guys from here, you play hard most every night. Like, how much joy are you taking in that? It seems like your guys have bought into process and just worrying about one day at a time and all those things that coaches say. It seems like your group is listening to you on that front.
Well, I think we've said that from day one. You know, we talk about some things that we want, goals we want to accomplish. We've said, you know, we want to make sure we play hard every single night, and the guys are playing with a sense of joy and competing with passion. And you know, that's what our guys have done. And you know, on a nightly basis, we want to just make sure that's the key point that we're hitting home on. That we make sure we compete and we fight for each other every single night.
How are you keeping that going, though? I mean, you're almost halfway through the year already, believe it or not. You know, guys can start checking out. I'm going to get mine, that sort of thing. And you haven't had that sort, at least from where we can see, you haven't had that sort of slippage. How have you kept them locked in on what you need them to stay locked in at?
Well, the thing about this group, and again, we've said it from training camp on, is that they just really pull for one another. It is such a great group to be around. You know, they want to empower each other. They want to get better. They all have a competitive edge about them. But again, they're always lifting the next man up. They're lifting each other up. It's a unique group to be around, and that they really just pull and fight for one another no matter what's going on.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Dan Savage, OrlandoMagic.com.
Coach, you've touched on this a little bit, but when you have so many different players coming in and shuffling lineups and lack of practice time, just how much do you have to just focus on what you guys are doing versus, you know, normally what you would game plan for specifically for another team?
Well, you know, we like I said before, you know, you expect the unexpected, and you can only control so many things. And I talked to the guys this morning about just when you walk in between those lines and step in between those lines, you're competing with all that you can do. You know, we talk about our defensive, keeping it simple. Offensively, keeping it simple, being able to move the basketball, defensively getting into the basketball, protecting the rim, and, you know, getting guys off the three-point line. So as these guys keep rotating in and out, not understanding or knowing who's going to play, we want to keep the message simple with all of them.
Go ahead, Dan.
I know RJ is just coming back. How is he feeling, and how, you know, does he expect his conditioning level to be, you know, coming off this?
Well, I think, you know, I think his conditioning will be okay. I'm going to monitor it as the game goes on, you know, and he and I will be at a very good level of communication during the game, but we'll test it and see how he goes as the game goes on.
Anything else for Coach Mosley?
Yeah, George, we have some in the room here.
Okay, go ahead.
Coach, Franz-Wagner's been good all year, but he's emerging even more lately. What are you enjoying or noticing about his development through his rookie year?
Well, I just really believe his basketball IQ, that competitive edge we constantly talk about with him. His decision making has just gone through the roof. His just ability to read defenses and understanding when to get to the rim, when to make the pass. And then we talk about the versatility of him defensively, being able to guard, you know, 1 through 4, 1 through 5 at times when teams go small. So his ability, just his versatility and his basketball IQ has just been, you know, something that I've enjoyed watching him grow into.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Last night's Heat Pistons game was pretty much the Tyler Herro Max Strus show. Looking at the game late, Tyler Herro, it's the chaotic shot to basically put them up, and then Max Strus ends up hitting it 45 seconds left, put them up 3, which ended up winning the game. But it was much more than that. It was much more than the final minute. It was just the entire game being that steady rock, being the offensive punch. I think it was 33 of 55 points at the half. Like, these two were really the engine for everything. So I just want to go through some of the ways they were being utilized and some of the shots that they were getting. The interesting about Max Strus, I'm going to start right here, is he was plugged in at power forward last night, much like he was the game before that as well. As much as this team is a positionless team, they still have to go through some things and be used in the position that they're being put in. So right here, you see Max Strus is the power forward. That means he's getting some dunker spot reps, some baseline roaming, which is interesting for him. And it's different, but it's also pretty productive because he's one of those type of players that's pretty versatile in that offensive role. So you see right here, Duncan and Strus playing together is an interesting combo. And I'm going to talk about another combo later on with Tyler Herro included. But right here, we see, you know, a weak side with Duncan in the corner and Strus in the dunker spot. That's just a pretty, you know, intriguing type of offensive spacing, something we haven't seen much of this season. Right here, Max Strus stays in the dunker spot. Defenders are just kind of a miscommunication, but he's able to sit there and he goes up for the dunk. it's useful. It's a very useful tool. I think it speaks to a lot of what we're when we compare Duncan and Max, which shouldn't happen a lot. But the interesting thing about Max compared to Duncan is he doesn't let his 3-point shooting dictate his inside game. And I think that's something we have to talk about with Duncan. After another, struggling performance, he did not get inside the lane much. The last time he struggled was he was 2 for 10 from 3. He was also 0 for 1 from 2. It seems like when the 3-point shot's not falling, he can't get to his twos either. This game, it was the same thing. He's not getting inside the lane like he was the game prior. But Max Strus, obviously, he was shooting the ball well, and he also was getting inside the lane. Another one we're going to see right here, just a high pick and roll for Tyler, which is something else I'm going to touch on next. He gets KZ Paul in the middle of the floor. And right here, something Max Strus has gotten really good at, something he wasn't his specialty coming in when he first started with Miami, first getting some reps, which is reading his individual defender and kind of just being instinctive and not just being a guy that's just inside the offense and playing so structurally. Now it's kind of he's just playing freely. So as I go back right here, just watch one more time, he's going to watch his defender. He's got his eyes on the ball, waiting for the tag. Max Strus cuts, and he has him lost. He goes up for easy. Not so easy and one, but it's just interesting the way that Max Strus can be utilized in that way. Now as I go to Tyler had some interesting ways to go about things as well. As I start here, this is a quick clip, but it's something interesting to look at the beginning of this play right here, where Tyler is starting his possessions. He's starting them higher than ever, and I think that's really important because especially when you're without initiators, drivers like Jimmy, guys like Bam, and lineups without Kyle, it's just they need to start higher in this way, gives him more room to roam, and also it leads to things as we saw last night. His driving game and his mid-range game was, at his best as it's been all season, much because of the way he's starting out so much higher. So as you see right here, interesting thing about it, as I mentioned before, the Duncan Max Strus lineups. The Duncan Max Strus Tyler Herro lineups is not something I expect to see much when they have an healthy roster, just because it's such a defensive liability of a lineup. But offensively, they should be able to generate some things, get some good looks, and that's what was done here. It wasn't seen much. I think it was seen for probably like a total of 6 minutes in the last game. So as we see right here, you're going to see them both clear out, and both of their gravity from beyond the arc, no matter how bad Duncan's shooting or where Max Strus is on the floor, both of them clearing out to a weak side is just mostly going to lead to a pretty clear lane. So as I go one more time, go back here, Tyler Herro is going to drive, both of them clear out, and it's a wide open lane for Tyler Herro. Like, that stuff's intriguing, but obviously I just don't see a way you can go about it defensively and go about those lineups for too long. But obviously when you put two of those guys on the floor and have one clearing out to the weak side, it could still be a useful tool. Another one for Tyler Herro. Once again, just kind of carving up the lane. I think it's interesting just the way he's getting inside the lane. How many defenders are coming up to him as well, but it's also these reads he's able to make and these passes he's able to make. We constantly talk about the reads. I brought up his reads in the last breakdowns, but it's also his ability to make the passes, which is just as hard to do. And I think it's interesting that he's able to kind of combo this right now at this stage of his career, where he's able to make these type of skip passes or make these reads at the same time in the normal flow. He seemed like he was getting stuck in the air a few times early in the season or recently, and it led to some turnovers. But it also can lead to good stuff like this. As I go back one more time, he sees the defender close over. He knows his guy's wide open. That's kind of what the defense wanted, was to just pull off, get to Tyler driving and dip off of KZ Okpala. And right here, KZ makes him pay. Another thing is just the amount of defenders that Tyler Herro gets thrown on him from possession to possession. Like, the amount of eyes that are on him and the worry that he puts on a defense is just at a different level right now. As you see right here, he comes off this curl, he goes, refuses the screen like he does. We see already a hedge by Lyles. When you're setting the screen, just kind of cutting off that screen, he refuses the screen and goes baseline. He drives baseline, and look who's there. KZ Okpala's defender. It seems like when you have these offensive limitation players on the floor, Tyler Herro is going to see more and more bodies per possession. But the thing about Tyler is he's not fazed by extra players, extra defenders. He goes right up on them, fades away into his nice mid-range, and knocks it down. That's just an intriguing thing to see, that he's able to kind of go about that and see so many different defenders and still be able to score. Because if we look forward onto a healthy roster, they're not going to be able to pull off a Jimmy or a Bam too many times in a game, possession after possession. And Tyler's looks are probably going to get easier as the season goes on late in the season. The last one was a lot of Tyler Herro, was a lot of Max Strus. But Kyle Lowry deserves some credit too. 7-0 run late in the fourth really got stuff going for Miami. Really got them back into that game. But I just want to go through this one play, and it needs some context because it just shows how smart of a basketball player Kyle Lowry is, especially offensively, just the way he can go about things on the ball. Yes, he's a great playmaker, but he's also a good scorer. He's a great scorer when he wants to be, when he tries to score, when he gets into that aggressive mode. Right here in this time, at this point in the game, he just got his 5th foul, and it's time to maybe decrease his aggressiveness because he cannot risk going out of this game. Usually in these possessions, you see him kind of go into the fast break, and he's going to plow down the floor and try to get in just physicality-wise and go up for a layup. As you see right here, all of his drives late in this fourth were a lot different than we're used to. As we see right here, he's going to drive down the floor. He kind of gets him on an angle. He stops and spins. It was a nice move. As you see right here, he ends up going up, gets an and one finish. But I don't think Kyle Lowry would have done that if he didn't have 5 fouls. That was a total, just at the top of his mind, he was thinking about that he could not get an offensive foul right there. He goes into the spin and it ends up working out for him. But that is a smart play from Kyle Lowry, not risking getting out of the game, not risking making a stupid mistake offensively and getting Detroit a charge. Like, that is a big-time bucket. That's a big-time move, and it's just a smart play from a smart player. So Miami did end up getting a win. It's a big win. 2.5 games out of first right now. They sit at the 3 seed in the East. They're in a decent spot, and obviously they're without so many guys. But as we keep talking about the developments from some of these guys that we're seeing, Tyler's getting better. But obviously it's going to be decision time coming up for Erik Spoelstra because guys like Max Strus, I don't see a way he could be shelved if he's keeping up this type of production, hitting these shots and obviously just scoring all around like he was last night.
Episode 5 on the floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're also on Dash Radio on their Nothing But Net channel. Give TJ a call right now. And now, tonight's episode.
Yeah, 5 on the floor, ride from the dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. The Miami Heat win tonight in one of sort of the weirder games that you'll see. They beat the Detroit Pistons, avenge a loss from the other night. Tonight's floor plan, I've got Greg Sylvander with me. No Alex or Brady tonight. Brady was at the game. Alex will be back with us later in the week. But essentially, the Miami Heat were trailing for almost all of this game. They pulled a little bit closer at the end of the third quarter, thanks to mostly to Kyle Lowry, but also to Max Strus and to Udonis Haslem, who had to fill in. And that's one of the storylines of tonight, is that Dwayne Dedmon went out early in this game with a non-contact knee injury. And I don't know, I mean, it didn't look great. They ruled him out as soon as it happened. He went back to the locker room, and he's had some issues with that leg before. 3 years ago, we know that those non-contact injuries can sometimes be worse than the contact injuries. So we'll have to wait to see how that plays out. But because of that, Omer Yurtseven had to play heavier minutes. And Udonis Haslem, and this always makes me wonder, I always ask the same question, Greg, why was Udonis not getting spot minutes last year? He had a big third quarter. He had the closing rebound. And we have to mention, in addition to the way Strus played, Tyler Herro at the end of the game, you know, we talk about having guts, okay? Tyler has that, particularly at home. We've seen him do this kind of thing before. He takes a tough fall away in traffic, makes it, and then has a closeout on the other end to finish off the Pistons with Udonis getting that rebound. I know, and we're looking at it on this chat. It's interesting because we have this internal chat, Greg. And, you know, there are a couple of people, that's a good non-loss. I think that's a good win. And I understand that Detroit, as bad as they are, was undermanned, but they had an outlier shooting night. And sometimes, and we've seen this even with the Heat, sometimes when you don't have your core players, you're better off. You have guys who sort of expand their roles for a night. They can't do it every night. But Trey Lyles was a first-round pick. I mean, he has bounced around the NBA. He's never had a game like tonight. but he was a first-round pick for a reason. And Frank Jackson was another guy. He was picked just out of the first round. And they had some guys, Sadiq Bey, who I think we both like, and I know the Heat liked. Those guys all had like career nights against Miami, and Miami won with a ragtag group with basically, again, Herro, Strus, Lowry, Vincent to some degree, and Haslam with Yurtseven. That is not how it was diagrammed when the season started.
No, I mean, like, I hope that the Pistons are not on the Heat schedule for a very long time. Do we all realize that this is the worst three-point shooting team on the face of the NBA landscape? And they shot 45% on 40 attempts against the Heat tonight. There's something about them playing the Heat where they're sharp, and I don't understand that. So hat tip to the Detroit Pistons. And you're right, like Trey Lyles and Corey Joseph, those guys in particular, those veterans that are kind of like fringe rotation players, kind of spot starter types, when they know they're going into a game playing 37 to 42 minutes, they lick their chops because they feel like, okay, I'm getting the usage that I always feel I deserved. And so we know that this team was going to give them problems, but I think you hit on a lot of the things that are really encouraging. The Dedmon injury is not encouraging. I was encouraged by Yurtseven's minutes. Obviously, UD stepped up. KZ is playing better and better. So I feel like that they do have some options there, but it's getting thin, and it's going to be interesting to see how Spo handles that go forward. Kyle had some Timmy Hardaway reminiscent moments where he just controlled the tempo late in that game, got buckets when he had to get buckets. Max is playing out of his mind. He had a corner three. We're talking about great shots. Tyler had a great one, obviously, there at the end, but Max had one in the corner that was unbelievable as well. So it's good to see those guys play so well. And these are the two things that stick to my gut as we talk about this game. And you mentioned guts check. One is Duncan Robinson got shelved. He was 0 of 6, 0 of 5 from 3. And I'm almost, I hate to be an overreactor, but I'm out on Duncan. I think that they should start exploring what it looks like to not have him in the rotation, and they won't ever shelve him from the rotation, but I think they should explore a trade for him and cut bait. That's my particular hot take of the night. And the second one is this. Here's my other hot take, and I'm not saving them tonight because we're being efficient. I think going forward, if Dwayne Dedmon can't play, keep Yurtseven in the bench role and let UD start and get his 11 to 12 minutes, but let him be the starting center for your Miami Heat in 2022. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I was not expecting this kind of pod tonight. Well, all right. Let me start with the first one. I'm not out on Duncan completely, and here's why. I want to see again what Duncan looks like around the players he's supposed to be complimenting. I feel like what we have established during this stretch with Duncan is that you cannot consistently count on him to elevate his level of play. He did the other night. He has occasionally, but then he also has games like this where he misses some shots early and then becomes unplayable. So, but I don't feel like he's the kind of guy who can elevate in the wake what we're dealing with right now. Like he can't. Like when the waters get rough, it's not a Duncan game. It just doesn't seem like it fits him. Now, with that being said, okay, it does appear it fixed Max Strus. And I think that is what we've seen here during this stretch. And I'm not even going to get into the three-point shooting with Strus, although he is the only one who comes off flying hot. Even Herro usually takes a couple of shots to get going, but Max comes off and he has his range. He had a little bit of a bad stretch tonight, but he's averaging 25 points over his last 4 games. Okay, like this is sustained. I mean, it's a 4-game stretch. He's averaging 25, and he's doing it on reasonably good efficiency, and he's also finishing in traffic, and he's also competing defensively. Okay. And he's playmaking at times. So I think what we have seen with the Strus and Duncan thing is that in this kind of circumstance, okay, this is like summer league for Strus. Like this is what we saw in summer league from Strus.
Yep.
You can put the ball in his hands and he can carry you for a period of time. He's more multidimensional. He doesn't get in his own head as much, it seems. Okay. But I do want to see what Duncan looks like with the core around him. And we're not going to see that for a while. So will they explore a trade? I mean, I think they'll explore anything. And he's the contract that is movable. But I also think other teams are going to see this and say, it's not just the Heat. I mean, they're going to see this and say, okay, Duncan can't be the kind of guy who carries you for any period of time. You have to have a good team around him. And right now, Miami doesn't have those horses. That's the first thing. Now, second, I'm the biggest UD fan on the planet, personally and professionally. I mean, I covered his first summer league game with the Heat. People who know me know what I think of UD and what UD has meant to my life. Okay, not just as a basketball player. I don't know that I would start him. Here's why. I do think that it's almost criminal that Spoelstra didn't play him last year. I don't understand the rationale. I mean, the minutes against Dwight Howard were fun, but like I'm remembering back to last year, there were times that they needed a big and they didn't use him. And I can't really grasp the reason for that because he still provides functional, energetic minutes and he knows how to play. We've talked about this before. He's going to box out. He's going to set a screen. He's going to get the ball to the right guy. And today he wanted the face-up jumper. Okay. He was looking for it. But I don't know that I would start him because I still feel like he's best in these spurt situations. Like I feel like you capture lightning in a bottle with him for a period of time. I do
right
think
at the start of the game. That's
I don't know about that. I think I would let Omer if Dedmon is going to be out, and we all hope he's not, but that didn't look promising to me. But also, it's possible with Tucker coming back, they may be able, when he comes back, they may be able to play a little bit differently up front. But I would go with Omer to kind of give him confidence. Let him start the game at the beginning. He gives you a bigger body at the very beginning of the game. He is going to grab some rebounds. We know that. The ball kind of finds him. And then use Udonis. But I might close with Udonis. I think what we saw tonight, I would be more willing to close with him than start him. And I think Spoelstra would either. But look, both of your hot takes are going to get attention. I think that there are Heat fans who would certainly agree with the first one. But I also want to say this to Heat fans, okay? You win tonight. You come back. Herro makes plays. Strus makes plays. I thought Lowry was terrific tonight.
Yes.
Okay, you get all of that stuff. You get minutes from Haslam. You get minutes from Uric. And literally the first comment under my, my Heat win tweet, okay, my end of game tweet is $90 million. I do think there's a little bit too much over focus on this. And I know you're usually the positive guy.
They're third in the Eastern Conference. They're
right,
2.5 games out of the 1 seed.
Right. They're 20 and 13. I mean, and they're literally starting like Kyle Lowry. They're playing Kyle Lowry, Tyler Herro, and Sioux Falls. I mean, this is what it is right now. And Eric is juggling and he's trying to find what's going to work. I don't want to focus as much on Duncan. I will say, I understand your take, but I want to see what he looks like with Jimmy and Bam. You're
being much more measured than I am. So I credit to you that you're bringing me back to
I
earth.
get the frustration because people are looking at it and they're like, okay, is he going to step up? But it just seems like it's either he really is or he really isn't. There is no in-between game with him. And I think what we have seen is Spoelstra has basically decided there are certain games where he's just out on him. Like it's not working.
And that's what's shell-shocking me. That's what shell-shocks me, Ethan, is that like to see Spo start to flinch a little bit. Like that's where I'm starting to feel like, okay, is this something that's not it's like irreversible, you know?
But here's the thing about Eric one of the things that I think he does well is he does sometimes he's been accused of not being the best communicator with his team. And it's hard for me to gauge now because I'm not in the locker room and I'm not talking to guys on a daily basis, but this was a criticism of him from Heat players during the Big Three era. But I do think he does get a sense of his team by talking to his leaders. And I don't think he's going to leave a guy out there who other teammates are not trusting at that point, because then that kills morale for the whole room. And the sense I get, maybe there's not so much that Spoelstra is out on him and not that the team's out on him, but that, look, they're scrapping and clawing right now, right? And if you got a guy who's 0 for 6 on open threes at the beginning of the game and you're losing to Detroit because they're making 3/4 of their threes, where they're the worst shooting team in the planet.
No margin for error.
Right. It's just, okay, we're out on that. And Max does provide a different kind of energy than Duncan. It's just even his persona. I mean, Duncan is kind of a little bit aw shucks, he's kind of a little bit laid back. I mean, Max, physically, he just looks stronger than Duncan. He's built differently.
Plays to the crowd differently.
Plays to the crowd, even facially. He's just, he's got the beard. It's just, it feels more like Max provides that energy, whereas when Duncan is not making shots, he doesn't provide that. And in a night like tonight, you can't afford that, because the one thing that you were going to get from the guys on the other side, particularly those who don't get to play regularly, was energy, and you had to match energy. I do think, and I want to get to this after the break, because I don't want to overlook, and we're going to talk Tyler, but I don't want to overlook Kyle tonight, because I was hard on Kyle for a period of time this season. I think he's been terrific the past couple of weeks. He has had a complete sense of when to go and when not to go, and he's feeding confidence to his teammates right now. And I think he's been terrific. All right, I want to tell you about a couple sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We always tell you about this one. It's prizepicks.com. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. This is where you play daily fantasy, NBA, NFL, NHL, whenever they come back. You can pair players from different sports, 2, 3, 4, 5 players together. Flex play, if you want to go halfway in. Power play, if you want a chance to win more money. It's a great daily fantasy platform, and they are the official fantasy sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We also want to mention where you can go to get your CBD. That is therapistpreferred.com. Get the gummies, get the tincture. They have all of it on the website there. That helps with recovery. It helps with sleep. Of course, I got the strawberry lemonade gummies, which are my favorite. For that one, use the code 5RSN at therapistpreferred.com. All right. Let's address 2 people here quickly, and then because I want to talk Dedmon. Kyle, again, I'm not going to go as far as saying he's Chris Paul-like lately. I mean, that's another level. But he is making guys better who we didn't anticipate he would make better, right? Like we knew the Bam thing, yes. The Jimmy comfort level, yes. I mean, but let's be honest. I mean, he's playing with the Sioux Falls group. I mean, right now. And now you're starting to wonder, like in Toronto, like, how much did he have to do with the development of Fred VanVleet, who he developed a relationship with? But how much did he have to do with the development of OG Anunoby, who, was injured in college, really good prospect, but didn't really have much of an offensive game, and he's flourished? How much did he have to do with the development of Pascal Siakam, who was not a guy who was projected to really be much in the NBA, was a project player? Like, now you're starting to see, like, what it is that Raptors fans were talking about. And there was a stretch there with Jimmy and Bam. Like, I felt he was deferring too much. Even though he's not scoring 25, like, I don't feel like he's deferring, right?
Not at all.
It feels like he's reading the game correctly.
Yeah, no, to say he's keeping them organized is to not give him enough credit. I don't know that I have something with more explanatory power, but that's what he's doing right now. And in December, like, if you even look at his shooting, his 3-point shooting's up to 35% on 7.5 attempts, 16 points, over 9 assists a game in the month of December. So essentially he's stepped up his play when they've needed him most. Tonight, particularly down the stretch, there were those moments where they just needed to get buckets. Like, they were down 5 at some point, and it looked weird. And then they just chipped away at it. And Kyle was big. The charges, like, that's becoming a momentum shifting initiative. And I know that that's something that's been talked about. It's a long-standing traditional Heat thing, but particularly on this team and the way that Kyle spearheads that, you're seeing Gabe get them now, Max get them now. Like, so I think that it's really good. He 100% is rounding into form. And now it's like, you talk about wanting to see Duncan with his guys. I'm anxious also to see Kyle play with, Jimmy, because hopefully Jimmy will be back soon.
Well, we don't know. People were asking me that on the Twitter Spaces, and I can't seem to get a lot of answers there. The other one that's weird is Morris. I know Jimmy was on the bench tonight. I will say this: Jimmy is the most restrained of the celebrators on the bench. It's not a Whiteside thing. So I'm not trying to create a controversy here. It's not like Hassan wasn't happy for his teammates. It's appeared, but it's like, even when the hero shot was made, it was like Jimmy gave like a golf clap today. It was kind of odd.
PJ takes the lead on that stuff, right?
Well, PJ, I said today, PJ, it's more his wardrobe at this point. I mean, he dressed up as the Grinch, then it was a fruit striped gum, and today it was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I don't know what, I mean, he was wearing that vest that you wear in the cold, like in Long Island. I remember those growing up, is like lime green. But yeah, I mean, Jimmy's pretty reserved over there. I mean, from what I've heard, he's reasonably close, but I wouldn't bet on him playing Sunday. And Morris, the Morris thing is getting stranger and stranger. I'll just say that. You and I both thought he might be back a couple weeks ago. Brady was capturing him on the court today, taking video of him, and he looks fine. He's moving fine. He's doing it out in front of everybody. Typically, when the Heat want to hide somebody, they stay up on the practice court and then come down. He's been doing it on the court. In fact, Spoelstra, when I think it was Ira asked him about Morris like 2 weeks ago, he said, well, you weren't supposed to see that. But yet Morris keeps working out on the court, but he's not cleared. And
it's
then
never been harder to get injury information.
Well, I will say this. It's impossible. It's difficult to begin with this organization, and you and I are both able to typically do it when not talking to players, but it's easier when you can talk to players. And I haven't been able to talk to a player, in a locker room scenario in almost more than 2 years. I mean, it's so that makes it more challenging. It allows them to hide things longer. And now we're probably going to be dealing with the same thing with Dedmon. So let's pivot.